What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Moneyball to Glory. Today, not only are we going to be covering the entirety of Season 1, but we're also going to be talking about how crazy Moneyball tactics are. And they're crazy frustrating. So, as those of you know who have seen episode 1 and 2, we were going to be running 3 different tactical systems, trying to kind of flow between the 3, utilize all the players that we possibly could. Now, one of those systems was my 4-2-3-1 target practice, which I trust big time, very, very good tactic, and it did pretty solid for us. Then we were using one of my Kaiju tactics, the Kaiju number 2. This kind of allowed for us to utilize some of the players in more defensive type roles and be a little bit safer, being that we are a mid-table type squad. And then option number 3 was my Kaiju number 6, which is a asymmetric 4-2-4 that you can see right now. It allowed us to be more attacking, especially against those smaller sides like an Ipswich Town. So within the first 3 games, I decided to test all 3 tactics, see which one seemed like we were doing the best with, which one fit the team the most. We tried the Kaiju number 2 against Newcastle, did not go that well, we ended up losing 2-0. We then used Kaiju number 6, that 4-2-4 against Ipswich to allow us to go a bit more attacking, and once again we ended up losing by a score of 2-1. But being that we actually ended up scoring a goal in that game, I was like, you know what, maybe we allow this to go one more game, we'll see what happens. We would actually end up having a pretty good game against Bournemouth, where we would down them by a score of 3-0. Everyone kind of seemed to start to get into the flow of things, especially Mr. Capaldo as well as Trincao. They were absolutely unbelievable in this match, and Josh Sargent puts away his first goal of the season. So I decided to stick with the 4-2-4 asymmetric, and we actually got some decent results with it. We would go on to beat Cambridge United in the second round of the Carabao Cup. We would also go on to get 3 points against Nottingham Forest. However, then everything kind of came to a halt, and I saw exactly what I saw with the first Kaiju tactic that I tried. We weren't able to generate much, and it looked like we were getting completely outplayed by teams that we should definitely be beating. One of those being a 2-1 defeat to Southampton, and then the other being a 0-0 draw with West Ham United, even though I definitely feel we should have won that game. So this led to us playing our first big dog, and I knew that with how that tactic was going and how it had fallen off, we needed to play a pretty defensively sound game. And what allowed us to do that from the tactics that I was running at the time was the 4-2-3-1 target practice, because we would at minimum have 3 in the back. So we had to play Arsenal twice within a few days' time, once in the Carabao Cup and then once in the Prem. Neither one went how I wish they would. Even though the Carabao Cup match actually went okay, we played pretty well, but we still ended up losing 1-0. But then when it came to the league, they absolutely dominated us from the word go, literally scoring in the first minute. So I decided to go back to the asymmetric 4-2-4, and unfortunately, even though we dominated Fulham, we still played out to a 0-0 draw. So that got me realizing one thing. Due to the limitations that I put on myself with this Moneyball save and not being able to see the attributes, I couldn't really see, okay, where are we going to be able to get the most out of the players? Because I can't see the actual number attributes. I just get a rough outline of what they are. So that got me to create a new tactic. One that kind of complemented what these players were able to do. It was fairly basic as well. It ended up being this 4-3-3, as you can see on the screen right now. It's very, very basic. Nothing too crazy about it, and something that would allow us to potentially cause some major upsets. And it was also a very ballsy change at the time, because it wasn't like I was making that change and we were going to play another team like a Nottingham Forest or an Ipswich Town, a Fulham, because we've already played them already in the league. The first game that we were having to try this out at was Manchester City. And it would actually end up being an absolutely incredible game. Jan Alrel Basek got us on the board early on, but being that Man City's Man City, you knew they were going to score eventually, and it was through Jack Grealish. They played absolutely phenomenal, but so did we. But you see Rico Lewis coming down here, Mr. Mateus Nunez slotting it past Henderson because at times he could not stop a beach ball. But we ended up getting a goal back and getting a 2-2 draw thanks to Thiago Almada. So being that Manchester City are basically 3 times the club and squad that we are at this current point in time, seeing that tactic allowed us to compete on a level like that with Man City, it proved to be pretty promising. So I ended up sticking with it. The next match was Liverpool. And this game saw us go up at home with a goal through Ebereeze, but it was honestly absolutely heartbreaking right here because that shot ricochets off of Bisek, goes in as an own goal, and we end up drawing 1-1 with that being their only shot of the game as well. So we got FM'd drastically right there, but still, we almost beat Liverpool from switching to the system, so still going to be sticking with it going forward. And after that Liverpool game, which took place in October, we ended up rocking with the 4-3-3 for a good while. We got some decent results, as you can see right now. I mean, we did end up beating Wolves, we beat Chelsea, but we still kept on getting draw after draw after draw and losing to teams that we definitely should be beating. So come January, I decided, you know what? There is one tactic that is tried and trusted big time. So we're going to switch to it. And it's the 4-4-2. So come January, we ended up playing this 4-4-2, my very first Kaiju tactic that I did. And from testing, it's absolutely ridiculous. So I was like, you know what? Maybe it can help us do something absolutely ridiculous as well. But before we get into that, we're now up to January, which means there's going to be new signings and some outgoings as well, most likely. And those outgoings were basically due to one reason. The players did not believe in the project and they wanted to go elsewhere. Some players didn't want to sign new contracts. Some players just wanted to straight up leave. So I allowed that to happen. We ended up being better for it. So at the time, before we had the players that didn't believe in the project, didn't want to be here, before they left, we were sitting in 15th. So the players that ended up leaving, they were Rob Holding, Sam Johnstone, Yassine Adli, who I ended up bringing in actually for $6 million, and we sold him for 17.25, so big time profit right there. Jefferson Lerma, and then this is the biggest and probably most controversial one of them all. He did not want to stay here. He would not sign a contract, so I cashed in on Mr. Mark Guehi and sold him to Tottenham. And the last sale was our starting left back at the time, Mr. Tyreek Mitchell. He ends up joining Yassine Adli at Al Nassr. So we had a lot of changing to do and some pretty important positions to address as well. We also loaned out some players because they just weren't doing what I needed them to do. So hopefully the loan spells could help them get that form again that they were showing through the simulations for the reason why I brought them here in the first place. One of those players was Mr. Josh Sargent actually. That goal that you saw him score earlier on in the season, that was his only goal of the season so far. So I ended up loaning him out to RC Law, and hopefully he can regain some form. Another player we ended up loaning out was David Pereira da Costa. He was absolutely snake-bitten, could not score, could hit the post better than anyone else, honestly, but he just could not score. So ended up loaning him out to Feyenoord. Hopefully he can find some form as well. And then one player that I absolutely love, and I wish I could have kept him here and him be happy all the time, was Mr. Marco Friedel. He was not happy all the time and kept on throwing hissy fits. So we ended up loaning him out to PSV so that he can get some more playing time. So this left me with a lot of money and a lot of positions to address, like I have said prior. So we ended up addressing those positions. All of these players were absolutely doing unbelievable at the time as well, and they were all off the list as well, off the short list I've been using to sign all these players, which if you wish to check it out, I'll be linking it down below in the description for you guys to take a look at. The first player that I brought in was Ko Itakura, and let me tell you something. This dude is probably one of the most underrated defenders within football in the real world, and especially within FM. He way outplayed what Mark Leahy was doing for us. We then went and got our first Wonder Kid of the series. We went to Troy and we got Mr. Savio, who is absolutely fantastic. We will be playing him at left midfield. With Sam Johnstone leaving, I needed a backup goalkeeper, and I also wasn't 100% sold on Dean Henderson. So I went and got Elon Melier. He is youthful. He's much younger than Dean Henderson, I believe by like 3 or 4 years, and he is pretty tall as well. I also trust this guy a lot, and I know what he can do. We then went and got a defender that just aged out of the Wonder Kid portion, and that was Zeno de Bast of RSC Anderlecht. We then went down to the championship and got one of my favorite championship players, Mr. Yasser Asprilla from Watford. Then I went and got another center back, Mr. Albion Hajdari. He was playing in the Swiss League, putting up superhuman level numbers. So I was like, okay, being that he is 21 years of age, center back, decent height, and he is left-footed, definitely going to be picking him up. Then I went and got our new left back. I returned to a place that I had previously gotten a player from, Mr. Capaldo at RB Salzburg. Went back and got one of his teammates, 25-year-old Alexa Terzic. Dude is unbelievable within FM, very good player, and he has one thing that I like very, very much: acceleration and pace. We definitely need that to have success in the Prem. Then I went and got probably one of our most important signings, another Wonder Kid as well. We picked up Mr. Hassan Ouedraogo. He is going to be a vital part of our future. Was putting up some pretty solid numbers, so I ended up pulling the trigger, and hopefully, like I said, he could play a vital part in our future. And then finally, I went and got a loan signing, which this one really surprised me that I was able to land this one, because, I mean, loan signings, those are very viable options, especially in a Moneyball type save, to where you don't have to spend like £100 million on a player. You could just loan them in instead, because we went and got Cole Palmer. So Cole Palmer is going to play the rest of the season with us here at Crystal Palace in Season 1, and hopefully he can do a job for us. So this was going to be our squad going forward, and one thing you guys might be curious about is why I am playing Trincao, who is a winger, and Thiago Almada, who's a number 10, at striker. When looking at the numbers for Francisco Trincao compared to the rest of the strikers around the league, he was putting up insane numbers, and he was doing it from the wing. So I was like, you know what? Why not put him up top? He was on 15 goals and 4 assists at this point. So he was doing absolutely fantastic, and he can play up top as a striker as well. Is it his natural position? No, his natural position's off the right wing, or basically off of either wing, but I ended up playing him up top as a striker for this tactic. And the case was sort of the same with Mr. Thiago Almada. As you can see here, those are the numbers compared to strikers around the league, except it was a different case for Almada, because you see he's not putting up goals statistically like Trincao is. The reason why I was putting him here is because what he's going to be able to bring creativity-wise up front. Because if he can just get the ball to Trincao with the rate that he is scoring goals at, we're going to be perfectly fine. And now you might be wondering, okay, well, Cole Palmer usually plays as a 10 or off the wing. Where are you playing him? I'm going to be playing him as a striker. We're going to have a 4-striker rotation, basically, of Trincao, Almada, Palmer, and then it'll either be Cho Guai-Sung or where are you, sir? Mr. Dion Drania Bellio. So those are going to be 4 we are working with, and Dion is definitely doing a bit better than Cho Guai-Sung right now, as Bellio has 8 goals, Cho Guai-Sung with 5. So most likely it'll be Bellio, Palmer, Trincao, and Almada going forward. But before we get into the rest of the season, there's one more player that I wanted to highlight, and this player currently is my player of the season. It's Mr. Nicolas Capaldo. He has been absolutely amazing. He's mainly a ball-winning midfielder, so that's where I have been playing him. But I noticed he has some pretty good playmaking ability, so I was like, okay, he's going to be perfect for that playmaking ball winner that I like to utilize within a lot of my saves and tactics I end up doing. But being that we have a ball winner and a Segunda Volante, which one's he going to play? Well, when you look at the assist numbers, he's most definitely going to be playing that Segundo Volante. He has 2 goals, 6 assists at this point in the season. And when you look at his playmaking ability, he is very, very good at it. So, I guess now, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the rest of the season. So once switching to that 4-4-2, selling those players, bringing in the others, we ended up hitting the ground running. 3-0 win against Bournemouth, 3-1 win against Nottingham Forest, but then a 0-0 draw against Southampton. We then also had a 1-0 win against West Ham, which then led us to one of our biggest matches of the season, the rematch with Arsenal, because, as we'll remember, we lost 3-1 to them last time, and they also knocked us out of the Carabao Cup. Thankfully, this game was at home, and we played pretty well at home, and it was proof when Bisek ended up putting us up early on against Arsenal 1-0. He then got himself a brace to make it 2-0. Then we ended up scoring another goal, making it 3-0, all before the 60th minute, and Eze's goal was absolutely fantastic. We did phenomenal in this match. Like, absolutely amazing. And that goal from Asprilla, insane. So, like I said, this 4-4-2 has us off and running. We would end up beating Fulham 3-0, getting a draw 1-1 with Man City, so still can't beat them right now. But then we had a trip to Anfield, which we all know that's one of the hardest places to play. Which Thiago Almada didn't really care too much about that, because within 5 minutes, he put us up on the board. This dude had been a man on a mission lately. Thiago Almada was banging in goals for fun, but Liverpool, being Liverpool, would get a goal back. They're very hard to beat at home, but we were playing pretty well. That was until we ended up going down 2-1 with a goal through Cody Gakpo. So down 2-1 at Anfield, there's still plenty of time left, 51st minute. What are we going to do? Thiago Almada is going to score another goal. Absolutely amazing game from him. We are level at 2, and in the 86th minute, Udrago finds Savio. Savio blasted in the net, and we win 3-2 at Anfield. So changing to this 4-4-2 has quite literally changed the outcome of what type of season we're going to have. Unfortunately, though, after that match, we would lose our first game in 11 matches to Brentford 3-1. Now, we were looking good. It was looking like we could potentially make Europe, and also, we were on a cup run. We were on a cup run in the FA Cup, and we had to play Sheffield United in the quarterfinal, which, thankfully, due to how well we had been playing, we would end up pushing them aside by a score 2-0 with goals from Mr. Francisco Trincao, as well as Mr. Cole Palmer, which, very glad that he was able to start netting some goals. Now, we were towards the tail end of the season now at this point. We had 8 games left, and it was very, very rocky. We only ended up winning 2 out of those 8, but they were 2 big-time wins. Now, one of those wins was at home against none other than the big dogs, Manchester United, where we would end up pushing them aside by a score of 4-0. Now, we had some big-time wins this season, beating teams like Manchester United, like Chelsea, like Arsenal, like Liverpool. We can't beat Man City, we can only draw Man City for whatever reason, and Tottenham has our number as well. But, I mean, it was great to see that we still are capable of having big time wins like this. Because the majority of the time, towards the end of the season, we would have very rocky games like I said, and they would usually go something like this, like in our derby against Brighton. We would end up going up pretty early on within the first minute with a goal through Mr. DeAndre Bello, who ended up being absolutely fantastic for us. Probably need to give him some more game time next season. Eze finds Bello once again to put us up 2-0. Now, like I said, we're up 2-0 at this point. Bello finds Savio. Savio runs in. Savio puts it away. We're up 3-0 at this point. Then, basically, all chaos breaks loose. Rafa, who they brought in from Benfica somehow, ends up putting home 1. Then Savio goes down. We're about to get our 4th through Mr. Capaldo. We're up 4-1. Everything's honky-dory at this point because I thought that we had a win in the bag. Then Josh Doig finds Mr. Gilmore. Rafa to Ferguson. It's now 4-2. Ferguson ends up picking the ball, quick restart. Gilmore is going to find Mr. Simon Adingra this time. Adingra to Enciso. It's now 4-3. I'm crapping bricks at this point. Then Bisek turns the ball over to Enciso. Jakob Moder, Lamptey, goal, 4-4. So that chaos is basically how a majority of our games went towards the end of the season. But thankfully, we were at the end of the season. It was a big breath of fresh air because I could recoup and kind of analyze what went right, what went wrong, who is our best players at this point, and who needs to improve. One of our players made it very well known in the last game of the season who one of our best players was, and that was Francisco Trincao. We would take on Aston Villa in our last match of the season, and we would do absolutely unbelievable because Francisco Trincao, at this point, as you can see, is on 2 goals. Trincao is about to add a third. This would be our first hat trick of the season from anyone in our last game of the season. Now, Aston Villa, they would end up getting a goal back. It would end up being 3-1 here with Diaby getting a goal on an assist from Mr. John McGinn. But Savio intercepts, Cabaldo finds Eze to Trincao. Trincao scores 4 goals. So like I said, we were starting to find out who some of our best players are, and Mr. Francisco Trincao most definitely is him for us. So how exactly did our season end up going? We would end up finishing in what is Crystal Palace's usual home, mid-table. So we still have some building to do. It looks like with the 4-4-2, we are looking pretty good with it. We definitely need to make sure that we are having everyone hitting on all cylinders. I think this season was kind of a growing pains type year, which is kind of what you expect with Moneyball because there's a lot of adapting to do within the first season. We ended up getting knocked out in the semi-final of the FA Cup by Aston Villa, but I mean, absolutely fantastic cup run within our first season, so hopefully we can add a cup in season 2, maybe even qualify for Europe by finishing in 7th at least. And Carabao Cup wise, we got knocked out by Arsenal in that 3rd round. But the reason why I say that we can finish probably within a European spot next season is because when you look at expected goals, we're in 6th. We're one of the best goal scoring teams within the league. When you look at overperformance, 8th, underperformance, we are in 13th. But goals per game wise, we're in 6th. We were very, very good when it came to goals, but defensively speaking, we were kind of leaky, and a big part of that was doing the musical chairs of tactics at the beginning of the season. So now we basically got one last thing to look at, and that is kind of how the team performed as a whole. And thankfully, I have a short list for you guys to take a good long look at it if you wish to, which once again, that'll be linked down below in the description. So here we have this short list. This is how it is. This is everyone that ended up playing towards the latter half of the season. Everyone that was loaned out or sold, none of their numbers are on here. And you see it's color-coded just like all my other short lists. This is basically color-coded based on performance that I ended up seeing. And I was like, okay, these are elite players. These are kind of the ones that we need to build around. And then these are the ones that we need to see some improvement from. So how the scale works. You see the gold on there. The gold, those are the elite cornerstones of the side. They are going nowhere. The purple, elite performers, definitely very happy with what we got from them. The green, happy with what we got from them. Hope they can contribute a little bit more. That teal color, I want to see more from them, but they are definitely staying. The orange definitely needs to improve. Hopefully we're able to keep them around, give them some more playing time, see what they can do. And then the red straight up gone. So currently only have one player that is gone. That's Mr. Daniel Munoz. And then the orange is Mr. Brandon Soppy. Both are at right back. The one right back that absolutely blew me away and isn't supposed to play right back is Mr. Chris Richards. He was absolutely incredible as a wing back for us. Very, very good, especially defensively. Soppy, definitely need to see some more from him, but Munoz, I was not impressed with him at all, so we will be looking to offload him. And based on this list, basically, I am going to try and keep as many people as possible and only looked awful in Munoz, which means that we really only need to bring in a right back, which for me, Chris Richards currently has that spot on lock. But there's one stat that I kind of want to look over with you guys really quickly, and that is the conversion rate. We had some players that were absolutely amazing. Conversion rate right here where I just highlighted. We had some players that were ridiculous. Now I know the 31% right here is Mr. Trincao. 31% right here, I believe was, I think, Koei Takura. 27%, that's DeAndre Nubelio. 24% was Mateus Franca. 17% was Mr. Asan Udraogo. This 17%, I am not quite sure who that is. Chogwei Sung, that's who it was. So we have some lethal goal scorers. We need to find a way to get the most out of them. And this 4-4-2, I definitely believe, is the way to go because we were scoring a lot of goals. We definitely need to be a little bit better defensively though. So I might look to make some more stay-at-home type changes to the tactic to allow for that. But all in all, very solid-ish building block type of first season. I know what we need to fix. I know what we need to do to have success going forward, and hopefully we can pull it all off, as well as keeping some of our most important players, because based on the season that Francisco Trincao had, I definitely think there's going to be some big clubs that want him to come in, so hopefully we're able to keep him. But there we have it for the first season of Moneyball to Glory. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you guys want to give those shortlists a look for yourselves based on how I recruit, as well as look at the numbers in depth on how everyone performed, be linking those down below in the description for you guys to check out. Next episode should be out 2 days from now. I am hoping it is going to be the transfer special, so we will have all the transfers done going into season 2 with next episode. But if you guys did enjoy, please feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Subscribing is 100% free, so hit the sub button. Right now I'll be popping up the playlist for this series as well if you guys have not caught the first 2 episodes, so definitely feel free to give those a look. But until next time, everyone, have a good one. Bye-bye.